Hey guys, so the issue I chose to present on today was Asian carp in Lake Michigan. These carp are very full of threats and they come in four distinct species: the bighead, silver, grass, and black carp. The species vary in size but all closely resemble one another and are all large in comparison to Native American freshwater fish. The Mississippi River Basin is a known location where all four live, which eventually connects to the Great Lakes. These carp were originally imported from Southeast Asia to the southern U.S. to help aquaculture and wastewater treatment facilities keep retention ponds clean. Unfortunately, flooding and accidental releases allowed the carp to escape into the Mississippi River system, which further allowed them to continue north to the Missouri and Illinois rivers. These carp pose a serious threat to ecosystems they encounter in a few different forms, as they are known as an invasive species. Firstly, they consume much more food on a daily basis than native freshwater species, which in turn leads to a lack of food supply as they will out-eat them. These carp also reproduce at a much higher rate than native fish, at up to 1 million eggs per lifetime. While there wasn't a large concern for carp before, as they were known to have specific diet needs that Lake Michigan wouldn't provide, their diets are actually evolving wider than we originally thought. Ecosystems over time have always changed, evolved, and adapted. That is what they do. And I think Michigan itself would adapt, but the social aspect from the public and the impact on the economy is what is worrisome. On top of environmental change, Michigan's $7 billion fishing industry is a risk for hit if this problem is not prevented. The industry in recreational fishing would change drastically, as these carp are 60 to 100 pounds, and not to mention the negative stigma that is associated with these carp to the public, and that change may cause a negative one in recreation. The Army Corps of Engineers has identified 6 potential alternatives, ranging from taking no new action to closing the Brandon Road lock, which with a permanent concrete wall, to try and attempt to block these fish from migrating. Closing the lock at Brandon Road would be ranked most effective option in preventing Asian carp from infiltrating the Great Lakes Basin, with the lowest probability of Asian carp establishing themselves in the freshwater lakes at 1 to 3%. But lock closure would impede navigation and potentially cause some companies that ship goods through that lock to go out of business, according to the study that was conducted. Closing the lock would also require congressional authorization. By comparison, the recommended plan for an electric barrier and underwater speakers carries a 10 to 17% probability that the Asian carp would establish themselves in the Great Lakes, according to the study. That recommendation has also called for construction of a specifically engineered channel fitted with water propulsion jets and a flushing lock to sweep out small fish and floating organisms such as larvae or eggs. While this electric fence has been the way that the engineers are currently trying to attempt, and we don't know the outcome yet, they have also looked at things like fishing and chemical poisons that could be dumped into the water, but neither seem to be safe or as effective. While the electric fence is being used, I personally think that hydraulic separation should be looked at. Mid-system hydraulic separation with physical barriers separating the basins at 2 mid-system locations. It would leave a few different channels open, including the Cag-Sag Canal and Chicago Sanitary and Ship Canal. These hydraulic stations would be put along the current infected waterways, encouraging the carp back downstream. This tactic is much safer for humans than the electric fence would be because of the locations that these fences are at. They would create barriers that boats need to cross too. Having people out on the boat while in navigation in a canal is necessary, and if the water is filled with electricity, it is really just a death sentence if someone were to fall in. The cost of this project would actually range just under the current attempts being used with the electric field and sound barriers, $300 million. The Army Corps of Engineers normally needs support from the Great Lakes states, and requiring non-federal partners to pay the 35% that they don't cover, though in the current case, Congress could waive all or some of that requirement. With all the Great Lakes playing a part, or Great Lakes states playing a part in this monetarily, they were all stakeholders in this project, as well as the Army Corps of Engineers, EPS, and federal government. with fishing canal companies too. I would measure the effectiveness with samples from the water at different points in the waterways consistently. Tracking both where the carp themselves and their DNA is found and located would be very telling and prove success. This process is not permanently damaging and allows for canals to remain open and won't disrupt current fishing and shipping industries. Carp are unappealing, large, foreign fish that people don't necessarily want to see, let alone be hit by when boating while they fly through the air. The Great Lakes ecosystem is very delicate in consideration with these carp because they would deplete all the food sources that the lakes have to offer very quickly, in turn causing a large problem again for our fishing industry. The Great Lakes, and especially Lake Michigan, have a reputation for being clean and fresh. A foreign ecosystem altering carp would also damage its reputation and an aesthetic to many people, including people traveling all over the world. These are my citations that I used, and I hope you guys enjoyed.